Elon Musk exposes Disney DEI memo. Standards include 50% or more of actors, directors, writers, and characters have to be from, quote, underrepresented groups. Hello, this is Robert Romano with comicsgate.org. Hit that subscribe button. Today, we're going to be talking about an article I just did for the Fandom Pulse, fandompulse.com. John Delarose has set up an extraordinary website full of articles about entertainment and pop culture, and also this ongoing kind of craze in Hollywood and elsewhere for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I wanted to write an article about this. This is actually the second article I've done for the Fandom Pulse. And why don't I share my screen here so you can see the article that I worked on here. No, we don't want to do that one. We want to do that one. There we go. There you can see the Fandom Pulse website. Again, it's fandompulse.com. Elon Musk exposes Disney DEI memo. Again, John Delarose has done an extraordinary job with this website, so do check it out. You can also follow them on Twitter at Fandom Pulse. And I think I have a blown up version here. We can kind of go through what I'm talking about here. There's the meme. Ex-owner Elon Musk on February 6th revealed a Disney document entitled Disney General Entertainment Content Inclusion Standards that outlines the corporation's hiring and creative diversity, equity, and inclusion DEI policies as he prepares a class action lawsuit against the company for racial and gender employment discrimination, which fired Mandalorian actress Gina Carano will be participating in. I'm certain that you would have seen Gina Carano's post on Twitter about this. And she says this is a really big day for her. This was on February 6th as well. And we can read through a bit of this. Today is an important day for me. I'm filing a lawsuit against Lucasfilm and Disney. After my 20 years of building my career from scratch and during the regime of former Disney CEO Bob Chapek, Lucasfilm made this statement on Twitter, terminating me from The Mandalorian. Quote, Gina Carano is not currently employed by Lucasfilm, and there are no plans for her to be in the future. Nevertheless, her social media posts denigrating people based on their cultural and religious identities are abhorrent and acceptable. Now, Gina Carano never did anything of the sort. She had posted something, I think, related to the Holocaust as it related to dehumanizing people, basically saying never again, that, you know, people started out and they were, you know, acting hateful towards their neighbors, and eventually it culminated in the biggest pogrom in human history, and slaughter of millions during the Holocaust. But she was saying never again, like we shouldn't let this happen here or anywhere else. And they took that to mean that she was denigrating people. And she says nothing could be further from the truth. The truth is I was being hunted down from everything I posted to every post I liked, et cetera, et cetera. So she was discriminated against. Now, was it done as a proxy for race potentially? Or was it political discrimination, et cetera? And I wanted to open up a little deeper into not just the Gina Carano lawsuit, but more broadly, the discriminatory hiring and promotion practices that have been occurring at Disney, thanks to Elon Musk revealing this source. He says, an anonymous source just sent me this from Disney. It is mandatory, institutionalized racism and sexism. Now, as it turns out, Elon Musk did not need a anonymous source to you can actually find this on their website on reimaginetomorrow.disney.com. This is a publicly available document. It's been there for a few years, as a matter of fact. There's also one that they published for ABC News or ABC Entertainment, in an identical document. It has the same exact standards included in it. And I wanted to show you their website, Reimagine Tomorrow. They say they have good intentions. These are their intentions. And when you go to content, they tell you what this is all about. And they link to actually the ABC Entertainment version of this. And they say they launched this back in September of 2020. So this has been going on for several years now. Content. We believe that forging meaningful connections with our consumers contributes to the growth and viability of the company. So we purposely champion a multitude of voices and perspectives. Our intentions. We are committed to inspiring a more inclusive world by reimagining the way we tell stories and who tells them. Our intention is to broaden access and diversity to our industry by adopting inclusion standards across Disney General Entertainment and live action studio productions by the end of 2022, with the goal of advancing representation in front of and behind the camera in marketing and more. Linked here is an example of the inclusion standards launched at ABC Entertainment in September 2020. And obviously, Disney is a massive publicly traded corporations, and they have lots of subsidiaries that operate underneath them. Things like Marvel Studios or Marvel Comics, or here's a list of them. Disney General Entertainment is the collection of the Walt Disney Company's entertainment and news properties across a portfolio of television brands and businesses. So these standards apply to ABC Entertainment, ABC Signature, ABC News, Freeform, Onyx Collective, 20th Television Studios, FX Networks and FX Productions, Hulu Originals, Disney branded television, including the Disney Channel networks and National Geographic. Disney Studios content is the collection of the Walt Disney Company's entertainment properties, creating content across a portfolio of brands. The live action brands include Disney Live Action, Marvel Studios, Lucasfilm, 20th Century Studios, and Searchlight Pictures. So they say, once again, we are reimagining the way we tell stories and who tells them. Reimaginetomorrow.disney.com. Again, you can check that out. And then let's actually look at the standards, such as they are. Inclusion standards, they have Standard A, on-screen representation. At least 3 of the 5 areas need to be met to fulfill Standard A. Characters, 50% or more of regular and recurring written characters come from underrepresented groups. Actors, 50% or more of regular and recurring characters come from underrepresented groups. Secondary characters, meaningful inclusion of underrepresented groups as secondary or more minor on-screen individuals, including background actors. Series premise, meaningful integration of underrepresented groups in overall themes and narratives. Episodic storytelling, ongoing meaningful integration of underrepresented groups in episodic themes and narratives. So right off the bat, this is about putting underrepresented groups, minorities, if women are considered marginalized, then you need more women in there. If LGBTQ is marginalized or underrepresented, they need to be included, etc. These are inclusion standards. This is what they say. So now creative leadership. 3 of the 6 areas need to be met to fulfill Standard B. 50% or more producer and above on writing staff, and 50% or more of co-producer and below on writing staff come from underrepresented groups. 50% or more of episodic directors come from underrepresented groups. Casting director is from an underrepresented group or has not previously worked on a Disney General Entertainment show in this role. Meaningful representation of underrepresented groups in senior creative leadership. Promotion of a member of an underrepresented group into a role that constitutes career progression for at least one member of the writing staff. Substantial year-over-year increase in members of underrepresented groups as directors and in writing staff. Standard C, below the line, at least 2 of the 5 areas must be met to fulfill Standard C. 50% or more of line producer and or production department heads, composer, costume designer, editor, production designer, music supervisor come from underrepresented groups. 50% or more of the other key roles, any mid-level crew and technical positions come from underrepresented groups. 50% or more of the overall crew and project staff come from underrepresented groups. Promotion of member of underrepresented group into a role that constitutes career progression for at least one crew or team member. Hiring a line producer and or production department head who has not previously been employed in that role on a Disney General Entertainment show. And then Standard D, industry access and career development. 3 of the following 6 areas need to be included in order for the standard to be met. Paid employment opportunities such as apprenticeships, internships, expert advisors to facilitate union eligibility for members of underrepresented groups, training opportunities and/or skills development, craft, creative, and business, including one-off work experience opportunities for students from underrepresented groups to be coordinated through current executive and corporate social responsibility, another policy. First job for member of underrepresented group in a role that constitutes career progression from prior training, staffing, from CTDI, writing and or directing program qualifies. 50% or more of outside vendors or contractors employed by production provide industry access or opportunities to members of underrepresented groups. Producer or department head participation in Disney General Entertainment Talent Development Initiative, Guild, or other approved mentorship program, participating as a panelist, presenter at a CTDI event qualifies. Mentorship will be vetted by current executive, and producer develops, executes a show-specific diversity and inclusion program subject to network approval. So these are the standards. Elon Musk is saying this is mandatory institutionalized racism and sexism. I agree. This is what you would call, race and gender hiring quotas. This is employment discrimination, and it's illegal under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, making considerations under the basis of race and sex, religion, etc., is not allowed. Unlawful employment practices, Section 2000E2, Section 703, employer practices. It shall be unlawful employment practice for an employer, 1, to fail or refuse to hire or to discharge any individual, or otherwise to discriminate against any individual with respect to his compensation, terms, conditions, or privileges of employment because of such individual's race, color, religion, sex, or national origin, or 2, to limit, segregate, or classify his employees or applicants for employment in any way which would deprive or tend to deprive any individual of employment opportunities or otherwise adversely affect his status as an employee because of such individual's race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. Now, I believe Disney is obviously aware of the Civil Rights Act, being a publicly traded corporation. And so they're going to try to, I think, get around this. Let's see, it's hard to read the bottom part of that. Maybe we can get it down here. We might have to go to my article to get it. It says context is critical when evaluating if a group is underrepresented. Actually, we got it right here. Anyone involved in hiring decisions is prohibited from asking candidates and talent about their actual or perceived race, religion, color, sexual orientation, gender identity, military or veteran status, age, disability, or any other legally protected category. So when you're actually interviewing a candidate for one of these positions using the inclusion standards for Disney General Entertainment, you're not allowed to ask about these protected classes, which I think is very important. They're trying to say, oh, we're not violating the Civil Rights Act. These are just these are inclusion standards. And I'd say no, these are, pretty, 50% or more, 50% or more, 50% or more. These are racial and gender hiring quotas, no question in my mind. So we've gone through Elon's tweet here. We've gone through the inclusion standards. We've gone through the company's website. And then we went through, here's all the standards again, summarized in my piece. And we went through the Civil Rights Act. Okay. Now, the Civil Rights Act, this is the law of the land. This has never been repealed. And it's been in effect for 40, 50, 60 years now. So the Civil Rights Act turned 60 this year. And these are the standards. Now, and it's still on the books, but in 1979, the Steelworkers v. Weber Supreme Court decision, the court ruled that employment policies that include racial preferences on the basis of race and sex in favor of women and minorities, which plaintiffs argued was reverse discrimination, were not a violation of the Civil Rights Act. This had the unfortunate effect of legalizing employment discrimination against whites and males, a sharp departure from more racially neutral interpretations of the Civil Rights Act by federal courts that had preceded the decision. And this is that decision, Steelworkers v. Weber in 1979. And I encourage you to, you can find this on Fine Law. You can find it on other legal, websites that'll have Supreme Court decisions on it. It was argued March 28, 1979, and it was decided on June 27, 1979. So that was almost 45 years ago. And it legalized affirmative action, in my view, in violation of the Civil Rights Act. And William Rehnquist, who would go on to become the Supreme Court Chief Justice, he agreed that this was discrimination. In his dissent on this decision, he compared the ruling to the totalitarian regime portrayed in George Orwell's 1984 by basically changing the law's true meaning. Quote, taken in its normal meaning and as understood by all members of Congress who spoke to this issue during the legislative debates, this language, the Civil Rights Act, prohibits a covered employer from considering race when making an employment decision, whether the race be black or white. There's William Rehnquist. Rehnquist added, the court behaves much like the Orwellian speaker earlier described, as if it had been handed a note indicating that Title VII of the Civil Rights Act would lead to a result unacceptable to the court if interpreted here as it was in our prior decisions. Now we are told that the legislative history of Title VII shows that employers are free to discriminate on the basis of race. An employer may, in the court's words, quote, trammel the interests of the white employees, close quote, in favor of the black employees in order to eliminate, quote, racial imbalance. Our earlier interpretations of Title VII, like the banners and posters decorating the square in Oceana, were all wrong. 45 years later now, the impacts of the ruling in favor of affirmative action, now dubbed DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, can be seen, even as employers attempt to feign compliance with the Civil Rights Act. Disney also has put forward a one-pager that vaguely advises that the context, in the one-pager, it vaguely advises that context is critical. It tries to say, oh, you can't, when you're interviewing, don't ask anyone about what class they are. But they're not quotas, they say. They say, oh, we're 50% above, but these are not quotas. They assure themselves in an inclusion standards frequently asked questions, FAQ, that Musk also posted on X on February 6th. And he states in this, here is the full racist, sexist, etc., discriminatory set of laws enforced by Disney's DEI Gestapo. And you can see here, these are the Disney general entertainment content. Now, I could not find this one on the web. So this reading of it, this PDF this one pager is available, but these frequently asked questions, I could not find these on the internet. So this might be an internal document, but it says very clearly frequently asked questions. And one of those is, are these quotas? Question 3, do the inclusion standards require or encourage productions to reserve a certain number of open positions for represented groups? No. The inclusion standards are about reinforcing inclusive practices. This means that productions will meet the inclusion standards by engaging in inclusive hiring and employment practices described above. The inclusion standards do not require, encourage, or permit the use of quota systems or the making of employment decisions based on someone's race, gender, or other demographic identities. So they say they do not require, encourage, or permit the use of quota systems. And I say that's very curious because you're saying 50% above. But I counter right off the bat, if these are not racial and gender hiring quotas, then why is asking if these are quotas a, quote, frequently asked question? And it's cover your ass frequently asked questions. Here, Disney is admitting outright that it, quote, frequently must defend its racial and gender hiring quotas as not being quotas because they are. You can't make this stuff up. As Rehnquist himself might have noted, this is Orwellian newspeak propaganda. There it is. There's Orwell. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. And this is what Rehnquist was referring to. He's saying this is the opposite. You're saying one thing, but you're doing another. This is a bad faith representation. The FAQ responds that it is simply about, quote, reinforcing inclusive practices. And they're definitely not quotas, Disney says, even if they're frequently asked if they are quotas. Quote, the inclusion standards, again, do not require, encourage, or permit the use of quota systems. Now, despite the bar on quotas or based hiring, Disney managed to conduct a comprehensive survey of its company, both worldwide and in the US, Workforce Diversity Dashboard for fiscal year 2022. They put this out every year, breaking down employees on the basis of race, ethnicity, and sex, with the most important quotas that are not quotas, including women and people of color. And I wanted to pull this up because this shows that they're implementing quotas, even shows the progress in implementing these quotas that are not quotas. Walt Disney Company Workforce Diversity Dashboard, fiscal year 2022, overall workforce. Right now, the overall workforce worldwide is 50.9% female. Persons of color is at 46.7%. That's up 0.4 percentage points from a year prior. And the female representation has gone up by 0.6 percentage points in the past year. Then we're going to go through each of these categories. Asian, no increase from year prior. Black actually went down 0.5 percentage points. Hispanic went up 0.9 percentage points to 28%. Native American, no change. Native Hawaiian, no change. White. This I think shows the discrimination in practice. It was down 3.6 percentage points from a year prior, 47, after this policy goes into effect. So they said by the end of 2022, this will be implemented. And here they are making their progress. White down, overall workforce in the United States, down 3.6 percentage points to 47.3%. Executives down 3.4 percentage points for whites to 69.9%. Manager down 2.2 percentage points for whites to 65.6%. And below managers down 3.9 percentage points to 43.3%. On this basis for whites once again. So everyone else is kind of the same or going up, but whites they're kind of taking it in the chin here. So what does this mean? Well, Disney's not really expanding their workforce. So for everyone that's getting hired under these inclusive standards, there's probably someone also getting fired. And so now Elon Musk is looking for those people. It's like, were you discriminated against with these policies? Gina Carano is one obvious example, I think, of wrongful termination, probably on the basis of politics. However, politics is not a covered class under the Civil Rights Act. Maybe it should be. Except, with kind of exceptions, like the Republican Party shouldn't have to hire Democrats or something like that. So maybe you exclude political organizations, but maybe political discrimination is actually becoming a pretty prevalent problem. In Washington, D.C., actually, politics is a protected class in housing. Because Republicans need to come to Washington, D.C. It's heavily dominated by Democrats, and they were getting discriminated against in housing. Said, no, we got to pass a local ordinance to protect politics, but it's not included in the federal. So I'll be interested to see how the Gina Carano suit is structured. But clearly, Musk is going for a broader attack, class action or otherwise, on Disney's DEI programs by highlighting them so. But again, the protected classes are race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. But could politics be used as a proxy for discriminating against whites? So if you look at, for example, public exit polling from elections, you'll note that most whites vote Republican. Most men vote Republican. So if you just target people on the basis of politics for Republican beliefs, well, chances are you're going to be, especially for firing purposes, you're probably firing someone who's white. So if politics is used as a proxy to discriminate under the basis of race, and maybe that's what happened to Gina Carano, then you could argue that then, yes, that would also be a violation of the Civil Rights Act. And again, these are, I think, show the racial and gender hiring quotas, their progress. They are overly focused on increasing representation for women and people of color. They're focused on removing whites from the workforce. So you're going to advance one group and then remove another group to make that happen. You're just hiring more people. You're firing people too. You're laying them off to make room for this. And I think that is a violation of the Civil Rights Act. It's supposed to be basically hiring supposed to be based on merit. That's what I think the intention was. Where it's like, we're not going to have any discrimination whatsoever. So again, the workforce diversity dashboard dutifully reported that worldwide women had increased, people of color had increased, and in the meantime, whites had decreased. These are fairly explicit racial and gender hiring quotas, in my opinion, but are not at all uncommon for publicly traded companies that tout environmental, social, and governance ESG metrics, of which diversity, equity, and inclusion is one of the social goals. Metrics to investors, hitting DEI goals with entertainment companies, Warner Discovery, Hasbro, and Mattel, all touting similar goals. Here's Hasbro, I think from 2020 annual report. They had cited diversity and inclusion goals, increased percentage of women in director and above roles globally to 50% by 2025, expand ethnically and racially diverse employee representation in the U.S. to 25% by 2025, include a 50% diverse slate of candidates for all open U.S. positions where there is underrepresentation. So, and you can go across the gamut here. I cite Warner Discovery, Hasbro, Mattel, all touting similar goals. Here's Pfizer, though. They're a pharmaceutical company, but they have similar metrics that are being achieved in their ESG report. This was from their 2020 ESG report. And also Disney Publishing Worldwide, which is a subsidiary of Disney Experiences. So this is actually what publishes Marvel Comics. They use similar DEI standards. Here's the Disney Experiences. It's funny that the publishing falls under Experiences, which runs the parks and the cruises, but there it is. But they similarly have inclusion standards. One of the chief ones, obviously, representation matters. Disney's strength in storytelling is intensified through inclusion, reflecting the authentic, unique stories of our guests and fans. Our goal is to develop stories, experiences, and products that offer inspiration, joy, and magic throughout our theme parks, games, and publishing groups. And so, I'd like to see how if these are the same standards that are applied to publishing. Particularly, for something like comic books, 50% or more of regular and recurring written characters come from underrepresented groups. That would be interesting. So I'd love to see the publishing guidelines that they're using for Disney Experiences and Disney Publishing Worldwide, because I think they'll show you how Marvel Comics is doing this. Now, we do see some evidence of the inclusion standards. Again, their Disney Experiences clearly is using very similar DEI metrics. There's no question. You have representation matters, authentic experiences designed with you in mind, our culture. We value all our people for who they are, not just what they do at Disney. We want to encourage their relentless curiosity, connecting with diversity champions, and they highlight their success stories, the inclusion key, employee resource groups, supporting our veterans, supplier diversity. This is interesting. Disney's inclusive approach to sourcing among minority, women, veteran, LGBTQ, and or disabled-owned enterprises gives our teams access to innovative services and cost-effective business solutions. As a part of our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, Disney has committed to increasing its diverse spend to $1 billion annually by the end of 2024. So yeah, this is Disney Experiences. Disney Publishing Worldwide is a subsidiary of that, and Marvel Comics is a subsidiary of Disney Publishing Worldwide. And I do have one example from there. In 2021, Marvel Comics published Marvel Voices Comunidades, highlighting the role of editor Angeliki Roki, sorry if I mispronounced that, who told Marvel.com in a promotion of the book, "I hold a couple of roles at Marvel. I'm a host and producer for the Marvel's Voices and Women of Marvel podcast. I curate and edit the Marvel Voices Spotlight series for Marvel.com and serve as a consulting editor for Marvel Voices Comics. I also serve as a diversity and inclusion consultant for Marvel." So Marvel Comics has diversity and inclusion consultants on the payroll. Overall, I serve as a member of the editorial team. Working closely with Lauren and Sarah, I help to develop and curate additional content unique to each Marvel's Voices anthology, like identifying key voices for interviews and putting together each book's unique introduction. So there's the promo for Marvel Voices, and here's that article and that interview, which you can find on marvel.com, which I think illustrates some of the inclusion standards as they're impacting the comic books specifically. This is just one example, but the fact that they have editorial also serving as the diversity and inclusion consultants, I think shows that this is clearly, these inclusion standards are definitely being utilized not merely at Disney General Entertainment, but also Disney Experiences, which runs Disney Publishing worldwide. I know there have been some, question about whether these DEI standards have any impact on comic books and editorial. I think they do. And I think that these memos, which, frankly, these are pitches to investors. So the fact that it was being done to, garner capital for Disney, I think is pretty irrefutable. And here are the quotas themselves, particularly for television and movies. 50% or more for regular and recurring written characters must come from underrepresented groups. The writers, the directors, the actors, everyone's got to be DEI. So the idea that this had zero impact on editorial decisions and somehow it was just a coincidence that all this was happening, I think it was kind of laughable. But, we just need to keep on pressing forward and making our case that this is what's been happening. I mean, clearly, Elon Musk is pursuing aggressive litigation now against Disney for its allegedly illegal hiring practices, stating on X on February 6th, as he exposed Disney's inclusion standards, quote, "If you were discriminated against Disney or by its subsidiaries, ABC, ESPN, Marvel, etc., just reply to this post to receive legal support," end quote. "Please let us know if you would like to join the lawsuit against Disney." So as I noted, as you're firing or as you're hiring people and bringing people on the basis of DEI, you're going to be letting people go on the basis of DEI as well. And that can be discrimination. Just failing to promote somebody could be a discrimination. And we're getting to the close here. For a company as large as Disney, 225,000 employed worldwide, about 150,000 employed in the US, to hit their DEI metrics on an annual basis must be negatively impacting hundreds, if not thousands of employees, since to make room for diversity hires, others must be let go. Even failure to allow, say, white employees, male employees, to participate for promotion in a diversity program could constitute a Title VII violation, as was alleged in the steelworkers case. That was someone who was trying to basically go for training and promotion, and they weren't allowed to because they were white. In the end, companies like Disney will have to answer for their racial and gender hiring quotas. They insist, like the statists in George Orwell's 1984, are not quotas, likely in federal court for what appears to be decades of discrimination that now has poisoned America's culture and body politic. No more. As Musk is fond of stating, they fucked around and now they're about to find out. Again, it's Robert Romano with comicsgate.org, also now with the Fandom Pulse. Happy to be writing these articles. Do check out the Fandom Pulse, fandompulse.com, and follow them on Twitter at Fandom Pulse. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications. But first, we'll go to the chat. And this might not be the biggest live stream, but if you're catching this on replay, I do appreciate you. We have James Bacon's here. Hey, James, good morning, sir. And I'm just going to cut out of here now. We've been doing this for about 33 minutes. Again, Robert Romano, comicsgate.org. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications. And yeah, Disney's engaged in racial and gender and other types of employment discrimination and violation of Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. And now Elon Musk, who has tens of billions of dollars to throw around, is going to bring them to court, as well they should. And other corporations, I imagine, publicly traded corporations that have been engaging in these discriminatory practices for years, should probably pay attention to what the Supreme Court just did in overturning Title VI admissions DEI guidelines for colleges, both public and private. If they can't do it, then neither can you. Corporations under Title VII. So watch out. These lawsuits are coming, and I think the evidence is going to be overwhelming. Have a good day, guys.